All right, so you guys sent in a ton of stuff about Pi Network, like now that it's actually launched,
Yeah,
right?
lots of questions about what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's wondering, how do we actually earn something now? So that's what this whole deep dive is about today. We've got your sources, all those snippets you sent, and we're going to try to extract the real ways you might be able to earn in this new phase of Pi, post launch and everything.
Exactly. It's all about going beyond that initial buzz and figuring out what the concrete opportunities are.
Totally. So we're going to cover where Pi is at right now, post-launch, how this whole exchange trading thing works, because Pi is on exchanges now, and then what about earning in the real world through those Pi apps? And of course, we got to talk about the risks too, right? Can't ignore those.
Absolutely. I think a lot of what you sent in, it really gives us a good picture of like where Pi is at this very moment.
Okay, so first things first, let's get a grip on this whole post-launch situation. What's the biggest thing that jumps out from your reading of all this material?
Well, the sources are pretty much unanimous on this. The open mainnet launch. It's kind of like, Pi's graduation ceremony.
Okay, so it's like official now.
Right, exactly. It's gone from this like potential digital currency you're mining on your phone to something that actually exists on its own blockchain out there in the wild. And that's what makes all this talk about earning even possible.
Gotcha. So it's not just theoretical anymore.
Not at all. And the big thing, like the sources really highlight, is that Picoin, it's listed on a bunch of crypto exchanges now.
So it's like playing in the big leagues now with Bitcoin and all that.
In a way, yeah, you can trade it, just like other cryptos.
And speaking of the whole Pi world, the sources also talk about the Pi ecosystem, with the apps and the Pi browser and the Pi wallet. All that's becoming a bigger deal now, right? What's the idea behind all that stuff?
So those tools, the apps, the browser, the wallet, they're all about building this internal economy within Pi. Think of it like they're setting up the infrastructure for a whole digital marketplace.
So you can actually buy stuff with Pi.
Exactly. That's the vision, at least.
Hmm.
The sources suggest that ideally you'll be able to use Pi for everyday transactions, buy and sell goods and services, all within the Pi community.
Interesting. So it's like a self-contained little economy.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, so with all that going on, Pi being on exchanges, this ecosystem developing, what's the overall market vibe like right now?
Well, the sources are pretty upfront that, as with most new cryptos, there's a lot of volatility. Like, the price of Pi can swing pretty wildly.
Oh, so it's a bit of a roller coaster?
Yeah, for now at least.
Yeah.
And the sources also talk about trading volume. That's how much Pi is actually being bought and sold, and that can fluctuate too. And then there's liquidity.
Liquidity.
Right, so that basically means how easily you can buy or sell Pi without causing huge changes in the price. Like if there's low liquidity, it might take longer to find a buyer or a seller, or you might get a worse price.
Ah, so it's kind of like how easily things flow in the market?
Yeah, exactly. And the sources also point out that even though the open mainnet is live, the ecosystem is still under construction. So things are definitely going to keep changing.
Makes sense. It's still early days. Okay, so for anyone out there who's thinking, all right, I want to trade this Pi coin, what are the absolute must-knows based on your reading of the sources?
The sources are super clear that the basic principles of crypto trading, they apply to Pi just like anything else. So you need to understand what Pi is, what affects its price, and crucially, what risks are involved. And speaking of risks, the sources are big on risk management. Like they specifically mention stop-loss orders.
What are those?
So basically, a stop-loss order automatically sells your Pi if the price drops to a certain level that you set. It's like a safety net so you don't lose more than you're willing to.
Ah, so you limit your potential losses. Smart.
Right. And then there's diversification. Basically, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments out.
Don't put everything into Pi, even if you're feeling super bullish on it. Gotcha. Now, besides just the simple buy low, sell high thing, do the sources talk about any other strategies people might use when trading Pi?
Oh yeah, they mentioned a few. There's day trading, where you're making multiple trades within a single day, trying to profit from those little price swings.
So you're in and out all day long.
Pretty much. Then there's swing trading, which is kind of similar, but you hold your positions for a few days or even weeks, riding those bigger price waves.
Okay, so it's a bit more chill than day trading.
Yeah, a bit. And then there's the classic long-term holding strategy. That's where you buy and hold for months or years, hoping the price will skyrocket eventually.
The buy and forget approach.
Exactly. And the sources also talk about this thing called technical analysis. That's where you study price charts and trading volume patterns to try and predict where the price might go next.
So it's kind of like reading the tea leaves of the market?
In a way, yeah. Some traders swear by it.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned Pi being listed on all these different exchanges. Are they all the same? Like, can I just pick anyone at random?
Oh, no, no. The sources are very clear that you got to compare them carefully. Some key things to look at: trading, fees, liquidity, and security.
Fees, I get that. Nobody wants to lose their profits to fees. But liquidity and security, what should people know about those?
Well, with liquidity, it's like we talked about before. If an exchange has low liquidity for Pi, it might be harder to buy or sell at the price you want.
So your trades might get stuck?
Yeah, potentially. And with security, well, that's crucial. You want to make sure your funds are safe, that the exchange takes security seriously, to prevent hacks and stuff.
So do the sources give any like specific advice on how to choose an exchange?
Yeah, they say to really think about your own trading style and needs. Like, are you going to be trading frequently? If so, low fees are super important.
Makes sense.
And are you planning to trade large amounts? Then high liquidity is key.
Gotcha. So it's about finding the right fit. Okay, so that's the trading side of things. But these sources, they also hint at other ways to earn Pi, right? Like within the Pi ecosystem itself.
Yeah, they talk a lot about the potential of all these Pi apps that are being developed.
So it's not just about buying and selling Pi, but actually using it for stuff.
Right. The idea is that these apps, they'll offer all sorts of services, and some of them might have built-in ways to earn Pi.
Interesting. Any specific examples from the sources?
Well, they mentioned things like e-commerce, where you could use Pi to buy and sell goods and services. There's talk of freelance platforms, where you could offer services or find people to do work for you, all paid in Pi. And even local marketplaces, where you could buy and sell stuff within your community.
Wow, so it's really like a whole new economy springing up.
That's the vision, yeah.
And it's not just for like the average user, right? The sources mention opportunities for developers and entrepreneurs too.
Absolutely. They highlight the potential for people who actually build stuff for the Pi ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like if you develop a useful Pi app, you could potentially earn from that. Or if you create a business that accepts Pi as payment, tapping into that user base.
So it's like the more the ecosystem grows, the more opportunities there are for everyone.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And the community itself seems to play a role in this, right? The sources mention things like moderating forums and testing apps.
Right. They call it community-based earning. The idea is that you can earn Pi by helping to maintain and improve the network. So things like moderating forums to keep discussions healthy or testing new apps to give feedback to developers.
So it's like you're contributing to the Pi community and getting rewarded for it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the potential upsides, but we got to talk about the risks too, right? What kind of warnings do the sources give us about Pi Network and like crypto in general?
The sources don't sugarcoat it. They're very clear about the risks. Like market volatility is a big one. The price of Pi can go up and down really fast, just like other cryptos. And then there are scams, unfortunately, which are all too common in the crypto world. And then, there's the risk of security breaches, where hackers might try to steal your Pi.
So it's definitely not all sunshine and roses. What advice do the sources offer for dealing with these risks, for staying safe?
They emphasize a few things. First, be super careful of anything that sounds too good to be true. Like promises of guaranteed huge returns. If it sounds fishy, it probably is.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Good advice in general, right?
Definitely. And then make sure your Pi wallet is secure. Use strong passwords, enable two-factor authentication, all that good stuff. And when you're choosing an exchange, stick to the well-known, reputable ones. Don't just go for the first one you see.
So it's all about being careful and doing your homework.
Absolutely.
And what about regulations? The sources talk about that too, right? Because it feels like the rules around crypto are still being figured out in a lot of places.
Yeah, that's a really important point. The sources highlight the fact that the legal and regulatory landscape for crypto is still evolving, and what's allowed in one country might be totally different in another.
So what's the takeaway for people listening regarding regulations in Pi?
The sources are very clear. Do your research, understand the specific rules in your own country or region, and make sure you're compliant.
So no cutting corners.
Definitely not.
And I think the biggest takeaway from all this, and something that's repeated over and over in the sources, is that you got to do your own research.
Absolutely. Don't just take someone's word for it. Read different sources, check official Pi Network announcements, and make informed decisions based on your own understanding.
So for anyone thinking, all right, I'm interested, where do I start? What concrete steps do the sources suggest?
Well, if you're interested in trading, start by researching those exchanges. Look at their fees, liquidity, security, all that stuff. And if you're more interested in the ecosystem itself, explore the Pi browser, check out those Pi apps, see what they offer.
Start exploring, start learning.
Exactly. And most importantly, find those official Pi Network channels. Get your info straight from the source.
Solid advice. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Pi Network, I want to leave you with something to think about. We've talked about specific ways to maybe earn some Pi, but zoom out for a second. What if all this whole decentralized world is just the beginning? What if this is how we start to change the way we think about value and exchange? It's not just about Pi, it's about a whole new way of doing things. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.